Eри카쇼. I'm your host, Erica Kang from CryptoSoul, and today we have a very special guest, Antonio from dYdX. dYdX is one of the most well-known and largest decentralized derivatives exchanges in the cryptocurrency industry. So, hello, Antonio. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. I've heard so much about, you and dYdX, so I'm very excited to have you here. But before we move on, could you give us a short intro of who you are and about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I'm Antonio, the founder of dYdX. dYdX is one of the leading decentralized exchanges for derivative products and margin trading. So I guess a bit on my background to start. I kind of got into the crypto space back in 2015 when I was a software engineer at Coinbase. That was kind of my first full-time job out of college. While I was there, just had a really great front row seat to a lot of the interesting things that were going on in the blockchain space at the time. Like we had Vitalik come and visit, people like that come and teach us how to do code smart contracts. And that got me really excited about what was possible to build on Ethereum and through smart contracts in general. And eventually kind of left to start my own thing and have been working on dYdX for about 3.5 years now.
Oh, so you started in 2017 or 2000?
Yes, like mid 2017.
Awesome. Could you just kind of explain a little bit more about how you became to create dYdX? Like what was the idea behind it and inspiration basically?
Yeah, so back in 2017, that was kind of right around the time when the very first decentralized exchanges were starting to come out. So things like 0x and Kyber. So took a look at those, was really excited by it. And kind of like I said, I was already really excited by the prospect of Ethereum in general. And I could see how there must be something to build on top of Ethereum, on top of kind of this new computing paradigm where you can write these programs that just execute totally autonomously, totally deterministically, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to write at the very beginning. But like I said, kind of in 2017, I had left Coinbase and was kind of looking to start my own thing, and the very first decentralized exchanges were starting to come out. Took a look at that and was like, wow, this is really interesting. So what's kind of going to be the next thing, like after decentralized, well, after kind of like spot decentralized exchanges? Spot is just like fancy word for like buying and selling. So I took a look at that and thought that kind of the logical next thing to build after that was margin trading and derivatives, kind of more advanced financial products that are built on top of spot trading. So I'm not really the first to say this, but really think of finance and especially like decentralized finance as a stack. So like you need to first have things you want to trade, like cryptocurrencies and money. Then you need to have like exchanges you can trade them on. So like in 2017, that was Kyber and 0x. And then you can kind of build more advanced financial products on top of that. So it wasn't exactly rocket science, but kind of felt like the timing was right around then to go out and build kind of this protocol for more advanced financial products. And yeah, I've been working on it since then.
I remember I was also in the space back in 2017. I remember like when you guys came out, they're like, wow, this is such an advanced, product. I remember it was even before DeFi boom, right? So I think a lot of people were super excited that this innovative product, exchange came out. And yeah, I just remember that exciting initial response from the community. So yeah, it's great that you guys are still here and like you guys are building something amazing. Yeah, and by the way, like this is just an informal question, but did you come up with the name dYdX? Like what does that like symbolize? Because I really love the name. I really do. And can you just tell us like what's behind that name?
Yeah, that's probably my main contribution to dYdX so far, but I did come up with the name, yes. I guess that kind of gives a little bit of info on kind of my background and where I'm coming from. So I'm very much more on kind of like the math and like tech side of things as opposed to like the financial side of things, at least by my background. Of course, I've learned a lot about derivatives and things like that in the past few years, but when I first took a look at derivatives, I guess some of my friends from college had gone on to like trade derivatives and things like that. But the first thing that popped into my head when I thought about derivatives around that time was math and kind of like differentiation, and therefore like dy over like dx, like if you're differentiating something in calculus. So that's kind of, and it kind of fit because that's like, it kind of sounds like the name of an exchange, right? Like, 4 letters, like, FTX, or like at the time it was like GDAX and like dYdX, like things like that. So that's kind of what happened, the genesis of the name.
Wow, it's a very intuitive name. Like I can totally, but yeah, that's a genius name. I think nobody can really follow that name. So like you guys took the first dibs on it, which is great. So you told me that it was a more advanced product, so it offers more advanced trading options. So what's the main target for dYdX? Is it for advanced traders mostly, professional traders?
Yeah, it's definitely mostly for advanced traders, but I would say kind of, especially in the crypto space, like the level of like professionalism for traders is very much a spectrum. So kind of on the one hand of the spectrum, you have just like people who went to Coinbase and bought their first Bitcoin ever. dYdX is probably not going to be for them. And on the like very other side, you have like really big institutions, like even some Wall Street funds are starting to get into crypto and things like that. We're not quite there yet for dYdX. I mean, we want to get there at some point, but currently we're really focused on just making the best product for more sophisticated individual traders, for kind of retail traders. And also, of course, there are some like smaller crypto funds and soon to be like larger crypto funds that use dYdX. But really in crypto, the interesting thing about the market is that it's really individual trader, kind of like retail dominated. It's like really different than how traditional finance works. Where in traditional finance, it's just really dominated by really big hedge funds. And sure, there are some retail traders trading, but like the hedge funds are the name of the game. But in crypto, it's individual traders. And of course, there are hedge funds, but it's really like the hedge funds kind of like follow the individual traders. So if you're an exchange, like the really big thing that you need to do is just build a great product and get like individual people using it. And that's kind of what we're focused on.
Oh, well, GameStop kind of proved that wrong for the traditional finance, like the retail.
Yes. It's certainly changing, especially even in the traditional financial markets. But I think crypto is like a really big driver of that, just in terms of like, I think the kind of the killer use case for crypto, even as an entire market, is trading. Not even like buying and holding, but like it's just kind of the perfect asset to trade, just globally available. And we really think that just kind of decentralized exchanges are the end state, because now you can take this like permissionless money and trade it on a permissionless exchange too.
Awesome. Okay, so let's kind of dive into what dYdX offers. It offers several services. Could you kind of like categorize them and like explain them one by one, if that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thing we're focused on right now is synthetic contracts, and specifically perpetual contracts. Kind of financially, these are basically the same thing, or like really similar to what was popularized by BitMEX. Now there are a lot of different exchanges, so like Binance, FTX, and a few others also offer perpetual contracts. So that's what we're mostly focused on right now. A perpetual contract is basically just a synthetic asset that you kind of create that tracks the price of another asset. But the real killer feature of perpetuals is that they can be traded with very high leverage, which is also the case on dYdX. So it just makes it so you can come to the exchange with, say, $100 and start trading immediately as if you had like $2,500 or whatever kind of the leverage multiple that you're using is. So that's the main thing that we're focusing on right now. Historically, and we still do offer products for margin trading and then borrowing and lending, but that's not as much a focus for us anymore. We're really just kind of focused on just building the best possible product for perpetuals and hopefully like other types of synthetic products down the line as well.
Is there a reason why you're focused more on like the perpetual trading? Because on the website I see like perpetual like so many times. But yeah, as you said, it's your main focus now. Is there a reason for that? Like, is there much more demand for it? Have you felt that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And basically, it's not super complicated, but perpetuals are quite literally the biggest trading product in crypto, like by a lot, by volume. If you just kind of look on like CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap, just most of the volume in crypto these days is on perpetuals or on synthetic contracts. And also, if you look at the traditional financial markets, usually you see just for any given asset, like the derivatives volume trading at more like 5 to 10x the volume of the underlying spot market. And just in the past year in crypto, the derivatives volume on crypto, like I said, has surpassed all the other volume on crypto combined. But kind of pull out that traditional market stat to mean that we think there's a lot of room for growth in derivatives and synthetic products. So we think that that's just a much bigger market, especially in crypto, where kind of trading is the name of the game. And that's what we want to be focused on.
That's great. By the way, I looked on DeFi Pulse about your dYdX and other statistics just to get a glimpse, and I saw that it was under the category lending. So I was kind of like, it should be maybe under DEXs, or so the categorization. Maybe you should kind of change that to DEXs.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it kind of gets to the point that we've been around for a while now. So we've been around for 3.5 years, and historically we were like very focused on like borrowing and lending and kind of as an extension of that margin trading. But especially just in the past couple of weeks, we've really just refocused with our new product, which I'm sure we'll touch on a lot in just a second, on perpetuals.
Yeah, definitely. And recently there was important news about the Layer 2 solution collaboration with Starkware. It was all over the website, so I had to, I think for everybody who wants to check it out, the website is very thoroughly explained. Like I was so in awe of the, the thorough explanation. But yeah, you guys should definitely check it out. But like, yeah, could you explain more about the Layer 2 solution and what it enables and why it's important for dYdX?
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody who's used DeFi before, you probably experienced paying extremely kind of exorbitantly high gas prices. And dYdX, the old dYdX is no exception to this. And kind of the fundamental problem was that for every trade that happened on dYdX, that mapped to one trade or one transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. And that has just gotten like extremely expensive recently. So I think on average, it's really volatile, but it costs about like anywhere from like 100 to sometimes up to literally $1,000 to execute one trade on dYdX. And it's just really unsustainable to try to build an exchange when you're trying to charge your customers that level of fees when they're trading. Just like nobody's going to use it for the long term. I mean, some people might if there's like a lot of leverage to take on or like interesting like airdrops going on and stuff like that on DeFi more broadly, but I don't think it's sustainable for the long term. So it's kind of that. And then also just kind of as a result of building on layer 1 Ethereum, there were a lot of product limitations that we had. So for example, again, if you've ever used DeFi before, you're probably used to sending a transaction to the blockchain, then waiting for it to get mined for like, minutes. And then your trade doesn't actually settle until it actually gets mined to the blockchain. And, if you're lucky, it doesn't even revert or things like that. And dYdX, again, was no exception to this. So when you were using the product, it felt really sluggish. So you would make a trade and then you just see a spinner on the site for multiple minutes until your transaction got mined. And then finally the exchange would update. But now with our new product, or a really exciting thing is it just feels so much better from a product and user interface perspective. You make a trade on the new dYdX on layer 2 and it settles immediately. It basically feels like you're using a centralized exchange. We really try not to sacrifice on the user experience and really don't have to sacrifice on the user experience anymore. So those are kind of the main two benefits in terms of just being able to offer users way lower trading fees. So now our fees are more or less in line with what you will experience on a centralized exchange. We charge sort of 15 or 20 bips right now as a kind of our intro like taker fee tier. And then also, like I said, the product experience is just vastly superior to certainly our old product. And we also think, or like to think, that it's kind of superior to anything else you're likely to find in DeFi right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Starkware, but there are many other layer 2 solutions, right? How did you decide to collaborate with Starkware?
Yeah, another good question. So for Starkware in particular, one of the big there's a couple big advantages to just partnering with Starkware. So the first is that it's compatible with Ethereum. So because it's a layer 2 that settles on Ethereum, it's super easy for users to go out and use layer 2. You can use your existing Ethereum wallets. It's exactly compatible. Basically, the only thing that you have to do is just deposit to a smart contract on Ethereum, and then you're on layer 2. So very compatible. The other big advantage of using Starkware is they're able to offer just a really high level of scalability. So the way Starkware works is based on a technology called ZK, or zero knowledge rollups. And at a really high level, what zero knowledge rollups are is that with a zero knowledge rollup, you can take an arbitrary amount of data. So in our case, let's say that's just all the trades we want to settle on dYdX. And then you can take all of that data and then run what's called a zero knowledge proof on them. This is basically some really fancy math that like even I don't understand, but that's kind of why we partnered with Starkware on it. They're really the leaders in the world in terms of actually building this stuff. So you have this like list of trades basically, so maybe thousands of trades. You run the zero knowledge proof on it, and then what you get out of that zero knowledge proof is this constant size data object. And then you can take this constant size data object, which basically proves that all of those thousands of trades happened, put it on the blockchain, and that's where all the scalability comes from. So now we're just basically using the blockchain like thousands of times less because we're just putting this little proof on the blockchain, whereas before we were putting every single one of those 1,000 trades directly on the blockchain, and that's where all the scalability comes from. But kind of to answer your question in terms of like why Starkware over like some of the other things. So yeah, I mean, Ethereum compatible, that was a big one. Just like really high level of scalability. Another really big thing for us is while there are a lot of other exciting scalability solutions out there, there are really none that are kind of as production ready or as tested as Starkware. So Starkware has been running for like 6 months or so now with another decentralized exchange called Diversify, which offers spot trading. They've been running on production with basically no issues for the past 6 months, whereas a lot of the new technologies like optimistic rollups with Optimism, some of the new like layer 1 blockchains that are coming out are very much untested. And kind of like I was saying, this scalability is like a really important problem for us to solve right now, not like theoretically at some point in the future. So just having something that was production ready was a big deal for us as well.
So imminent, you have to use it imminently, and you just had to have a production ready product. And yeah, Starkware has been going on for some time, so I guess that was more trustworthy and for the time being, I guess, at least. So yeah, that's amazing. So if you have the layer 2, what I heard that it's right now limited, like towards the pairs, and are you planning to expand the pairs? Like what's your like I guess like short-term timeline for like other products to be on board? Like you just like launched the layer 2 solution, so what's coming up in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you said, we just launched our layer 2 in alpha 2 days ago. So right now it's currently running in private alpha, but on mainnet. So it's trading with real money. That's exciting. It's not just something on testnet that's like theoretically going to come to mainnet at some point. It's live right now. So like I said, currently live in a private alpha. You can go to our website and sign up for the private alpha, and then we'll just be letting people in over time. We have tested it pretty extensively internally ourselves, but currently we're running with just limited deposit amounts. So as to, if there is, for whatever reason, like some bug in the contract, there won't be too much funds locked up, and we can kind of recover from that without too much hassle. That said, we're planning to raise kind of the deposit limits starting in a week or two, assuming that we're seeing a lot of system stability. And then we're just pushing hard towards hitting a public launch date. So anybody can use it with unlimited amounts of money pretty soon, actually, probably in like 3 to 4 weeks or so. So yeah, it's coming for everybody.
And in terms of perpetuals, like, is there a limit? I mean, I don't know too much about perpetuals, so like I might ask you basic questions, but like are you planning to launch more perpetuals, like more creative ones with more new products on board? Just curious about how like what's the limit behind perpetuals? Like I just cannot imagine. I'm sure like it's kind of limitless, but can you just share us more about what it can enable, especially with the layer 2 solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other really cool things about perpetuals is what I was saying at the beginning, where they're synthetic. So you don't actually need the asset that you're trading to be on the chain that you're using. Yeah. So for us, like we don't need there to be wrapped Bitcoin or like wrapped like Solana or whatever to kind of exist on the Ethereum chain. We can just create a synthetic contract that tracks the price of anything really easily. And that's especially important for a decentralized exchange because it's a lot harder to do cross-chain things on a decentralized exchange than it is on a centralized exchange. So currently on both layer 1 and on our alpha for the layer 2 perpetuals, we only have 3 markets. So we have BTC, ETH, and Link right now. Mm-hmm. We're planning to scale this up quite a lot in the near future. So we're looking to launch about 50 markets in the next year. And then, we haven't announced exactly which ones yet, but we kind of have we've slated ourselves just like a schedule of launching like 10 to 20 markets over like the month or two after launch. So just look for us to continue to like roll out like new markets really fast after launching. And we're able to do this now for a couple different reasons. So the first is because of the synthetic contracts, just really easy to like trade anything, like I was saying. And the second is a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more technical, but is also like extremely important. And that's the concept of cross margining. And basically what that means is for our like old products, so for our layer 1 perpetuals, they were what's known as isolated margin. So that basically means like when you're trading on a given product or a given market, your collateral only works for that market. So say you wanted to trade like both Bitcoin and ETH on layer 1 dYdX, you would have had to put down a margin deposit and put down collateral for ETH, and then separately put down collateral for BTC. So it's a lot less capital efficient And also really important, it's especially like really capital inefficient for market makers. So for market makers, imagine you're trying to just market make like every market dYdX has, and every market is isolated margin. So let's say like if dYdX only had isolated margining and they wanted to launch 50 markets, a market maker would have had to put down collateral 50 times, which is just like really unsustainable. And that's like why we didn't launch a lot of markets before. But now with cross margining, you can just have one account and then collateralize any position or any market that you might want to trade on from that one account. So now market makers can just deposit one pool of collateral and can start quoting on like every one of those, soon to be 50 markets. And then it's a lot easier for us to launch new markets like that.
Oh, thanks for the explanation. Just curious on you, like when you're choosing the pairs, like you said you're planning to launch up to 50 pairs, but like when you're choosing such like pairs, like what is your standard in choosing them, and like is there a specific like team that chooses them? I'm just curious about the internal process behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a growth team that kind of specializes in one of the things that they do is exactly that, just like looking at different tokens, looking at different teams to partner with potentially, and then just making decisions on the listing side. So that's one of the big things that we've been working on. And kind of when I alluded to that list of like 10 to 20 markets we already have slated for launch, that's one of the things they've been doing for the past few months. So in terms of the criteria we look at to think about what we should list, it's not rocket science. It's mostly just like trying to make a determination on what people want to trade and specifically what our users want to trade. And our users, and I think this is becoming like less the case, especially like in the past few months, but they are for the most part like Ethereum native. Like if you're using dYdX, like you have ETH, like you have an Ethereum wallet, like all of that. So historically, ETH is obviously like the most popular product to trade on dYdX. BTC, obviously, you have to have BTC trading. That's just like the biggest market. But kind of the main thing that we're focusing on is kind of specializing in DeFi tokens specifically. I mean, not exclusively. We'll still continue to like list other things. But again, because we have this kind of like really like ETH, like DeFi centric user base, we want to trade tokens that are useful to that user base. So it's kind of like, the top tokens, but like more skewed towards the DeFi side.
Yeah, and DeFi space has literally grown on top of the Ethereum ecosystem, so it's pretty natural that you guys are focusing on DeFi tokens. Oh, that makes sense. When you first came into the scene in 2017, there were not many DEXs, right? I mean, it was pretty like clear like who was out there, right? But now it's kind of like everyone is, there's so many people, players jumping in, and it's pretty much difficult to choose like which one to use. For you guys, what will be the competitiveness of dYdX that you think is the major ones, I guess? What differentiates dYdX from the other ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing that differentiates us from, I would say most, I mean, not all, but most other decentralized exchanges is that we're focused on more advanced financial products, that we're focused specifically on perpetuals. I think Uniswap and 0x have done like a great job of making like really high quality products for spot trading. And there's like a lot of utility for kind of more simple types of users to use those. But of course, we're focused on more advanced financial products and focused on perpetuals. Of course, we're not the only ones doing it, especially now. There are a couple others like Perpetual Protocol, Future Swap, and I think a couple others as well. But I think in terms of our competitive advantage over like some of those competitors, I think it mostly has to do with kind of the quality of our product and the quality of our engineering team that's building it. And also kind of the fact that we're built on basically what I would argue is kind of the leading scalability solution right now in terms of Starkware, which like I was talking about before, just allows us to build a much higher quality product. So I don't know, I don't want to like bad talk people too much, but just like go out and like try using our new alpha product and then like try some of the other things that are out there and kind of decide for yourself in terms of like which one has the best product experience. And, just in like company building in general, especially like, kind of the Silicon Valley ethos, which is where we're based, is just like really focus on the product. And if you don't have like the best or kind of a really great product, then you're never going to be successful in the long term. So that's really what we're focused on. And that's one of the reasons why one of the big like elephants in the room for us is we haven't done a token. And we're basically like one of the only ones left in DeFi that haven't. And the main reason that we haven't, and we've actually gone through like 2 rounds of this so far. So like we were back in 2017 and kind of the midst of the ICO boom, we didn't do a token. We haven't done one yet. We are thinking about doing one for now, but the main thing we feel like we really have to nail, and that I'm just going to keep talking about, is that we're really focused on our product right now. We want to make the best possible product for people, and that's why we've just been laser focused on that rather than kind of like trying to growth hack with a token for now or anything like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that question about like not having a token, which is very unique now because everyone is not having a token. And I really think that it does represent that you guys are really focused on the product. And I've felt that through the years, like very consistent, right? And yeah, I think a lot of people in the industry does recognize that. And yeah, it's wonderful. And I think one of the community members, like I was tweeting out that I'm doing an interview and one of the community members, they pointed out that the number of perpetuals, the volume of perpetuals increased dramatically since May of 2020. And maybe that's the, I mean, do you know what the reason might be? Like, I mean, there might be a specific event, but not maybe like the rise of DeFi or just a rise of, I guess, like more trading in general? Like, what do you think the reason behind that might be?
Yeah, if I were to theorize, I don't think like the rise of perpetuals is so much about DeFi, though I think that will be the future for perpetuals, obviously. But I think the rise for perpetuals and maybe the rise for like more perpetuals as a proxy for like more sophisticated products more generally on top of crypto, I think just has to do with the way financial markets usually evolve over time. That's what I was talking about before, where it's like a stack. Like first Satoshi made Bitcoin, and then like there was Mt. Gox and Coinbase with like spot trading. Then there was like Bitfinex with margin trading, and then there was like Binance and BitMEX and things like that with perpetuals. So it's like kind of gets built up over time. And in parallel with that, there's also just kind of the level of sophistication of the traders in the space, I think has really increased a lot on average over the past couple of years. And it's, again, like what I was saying in terms of mirroring the traditional financial markets, where derivatives are the most highly traded products. I think the crypto space has just continued to level up over time. And then we just saw that inflection point that you mentioned in terms of the derivatives trading volume surpassing the spot trading volume just happened last year. And then in crypto, like one of the unique things about crypto, which I also mentioned, is that it's really like individual trader or retail dominated. And I think that's the real reason why perpetuals are comparatively a lot more popular than things like options or like dated futures or things like that, which are popular in the traditional markets. Because perpetuals, like when you're trading a perpetual, it really feels like you're kind of trading the underlying product. Of course, you're not, and it's more complicated than that. There's things like leverage, there's things like the funding rate that you have to understand and that you have to take into account when you're trading these products. But it's a lot more similar to just trading, Bitcoin. Trading a Bitcoin perpetual is like way more similar to trading Bitcoin than trading Bitcoin options is, for example. So it's a lot more accessible to more people in the space. And because the crypto market is really like individual trader dominated, I think that's why that, the perpetual product has become so popular.
Great. And I think like last year and this year, like a lot of the non-crypto traders became interested in the crypto space. And I think we see many more people jumping into the crypto wagon, basically. But I mean, there's been increasing attention about DEXs, but like to onboard the non-crypto users, basically, like directly onboard, it's kind of difficult to do so at the moment. Like, I mean, with the centralized exchanges, it's pretty easy to do that. Do you see like the centralized exchange and the decentralized exchange like collaborating together in some way and create like synergy effects? Or what is your thought on like the potential synergy effect between like centralized and decentralized exchanges? Or do you consider that happening or not?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I think a lot of the centralized exchanges too can kind of see the writing on the wall in terms of like how decentralized exchanges will become really big at some point. And, that kind of leads to all the stuff like FTX building Serum, like Binance, like pushing their smart chain, Coinbase investing in like a lot of DeFi companies, like all that stuff. So I think everyone can kind of see like the similar like end state. And we're not quite there yet. Even with us on layer 2, I think like decentralized exchanges still have some more work to do on the product side to just become better than centralized exchanges, but we're almost there. And then I guess in terms of like potential synergies for centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges right now, I mean, I think there's a lot of areas for collaboration. So in terms of like various centralized exchanges, like investing a lot of things in the DeFi space and being supportive, like Coinbase as an example, and not just Coinbase, but I'm kind of more familiar with them. They've done a lot of good work in terms of like education on DeFi products, like with like Comp, Uniswap, things like that. And then there's also ways from a product perspective that I'm looking forward to ways like we can hopefully integrate more directly with centralized exchanges in the future. And to be clear, we don't exactly have plans to do this right now, but kind of as an example, like one of the things that would be really helpful from a product perspective is if centralized exchanges had like a layer 2 integration. So for example, if you're on Binance, you could withdraw directly on layer 2, directly to dYdX or whatever other product you're using on layer 2. And you wouldn't have to say first like withdraw to Ethereum and pay like a bunch in gas and then like deposit on Ethereum to dYdX's layer 2 and pay a bunch more in gas. So like just that as an example, I think is a really good way that CeFi and DeFi can collaborate.
Definitely. And in terms of like, product is of course the most important thing, but there needs to be some market making incentive for some users. I think that's why a lot of exchanges started utilizing their tokens basically. Do you plan to create like more incentives in the roadmap in the future for the users in terms of that incentive?
Yeah, absolutely. So we already have been working. Basically, the biggest initiative for us on the growth side for the past like 3 to 4 months has been on market makers. Just like working directly with a bunch of market makers. That's kind of what I alluded to before in terms of that, like we're going to be getting some of the bigger market makers on the space on dYdX going forwards, which is really exciting. And additionally, just continuing to have the partnerships with the already great market makers we do have on dYdX and will continue to have on dYdX going forwards. So it's a really big focus for us. And then in terms of like incentives, so one of the other things that we're going to be rolling out alongside our layer 2 launch is kind of a volume weighted fee schedule. So this is like the types of things you're probably more used to seeing on a centralized exchange. But TLDR, it's like if you do more volume on the exchange, then you get better fees. So it's just incentivizing people to do more volume and especially to do more maker volume, which is what we really want because that just increases liquidity, which just improves the quality of the product for everyone.
Right. Liquidity is very important. Composability is also very important. But I kind of forgot that question about composability, right? When you're launching like layer 2, and does it affect composability or like what happens to that aspect of, composability? I just forgot to ask that question, but I would really love your answer. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm probably gonna give a like slightly different answer on this than most people in DeFi would. But I think specifically for us, like at dYdX, like composability is actually not that important right now for a couple of reasons. We've really taken kind of a more full stack approach to building products at dYdX than I think a lot of other people in DeFi do. Like, we build the smart contracts, we build like the servers that run like the order matching and the front end and kind of the mobile products and everything like that. And that just allows us kind of from top to bottom to build like a much superior product experience, we think. And the other reason that, I think composability is not quite as important for us is because we're focused more on just specifically trading and specifically trading of like advanced products like synthetics. So we can just build a product that's specifically for trading and we don't really need collaborations with that many other exchanges or projects more generally because we're offering synthetic products. So we can just like, we don't need cross-chain. We don't kind of need anything like that. We can just like point our oracle at whatever asset we want to trade and start trading that. That said, I don't think it's like zero importance. I think it's just like less important than some other projects in DeFi. For example, like one of the really cool integrations we're going to be having on the new product really soon is an integration with the 0x API, which is basically a decentralized exchange aggregator. So when you're kind of depositing funds to or withdrawing funds from dYdX, you can kind of deposit any token. On our layer 2, basically the way it works is that there's only USDC in the platform, and USDC is the only collateral. But you can come to the exchange, you can come with USDT and deposit, and then kind of behind the scenes, we run an integration with the 0x API where we will automatically swap your, say, USDT or whatever other token you want to come with for USDC and just make that a really seamless experience to deposit into the product. And that's like an example of how we can build like a really great user experience through some composability. And then also by having our layer 2 as a roll-up on layer 1 Ethereum, we can still get access to a lot of that.
Yeah, thanks for the quick question that I forgot to ask, but I thought it was a very important aspect. But yeah, thanks for the answer. Yeah, it seems like I think many people realize that dYdX considers China an important market as well. And why do you think it's an important market? And I guess Asian market in general, I guess. Why do you think it's important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the Asian market is super important. That's actually been the #1 focus on growth for us in the past few months. We just recently hired our first international employee. Her name's Yuran, and she's based in China.
Wow.
So taking this really seriously, and plan to continue to hire people abroad to just make sure that, first of all, again, the product experience is great for like users in those markets. So for example, like she's done a lot of work already in terms of like auditing all our translations, like making sure from a product experience it's like similar to what users in those markets are used to trading on for like other exchanges, that the like site loads quickly, that our like customer support is good in those markets, like all this stuff. So that's kind of what we're leveling up on a lot, I think, right now. But to answer your original question in terms of why we are so interested in kind of the international market, it really has to do with kind of the market dynamics around kind of derivative products, and especially around just more advanced financial products for trading and things like that. Like derivatives are basically way more popular in Asia, also somewhat in Europe than they are in kind of the US. And there's also like quite a lot of regulation around derivatives and things like that in the US that we have to think about. But the main reason is just that kind of traders in these markets are more used to trading derivatives. They're the main driver of perpetuals trading volume on all the existing exchanges. So if we want to kind of fulfill our goal of becoming one of the biggest exchanges in the next like 3 to 5 years in crypto period, we really have to play in the biggest markets, and we really have to be able to like win those markets. And that's where we're starting to take it really seriously.
Oh, I heard that also for the Korean market, you did a translation for Koreans, and that's a first for dYdX as well. And do you also have plans to kind of spearhead into the Korean market?
Yes, absolutely. That's literally our, after China, like China was the first one, and then like Korea is our biggest priority, like after that right now. So like you said, it always kind of has to start with translations. That's kind of prerequisite for just getting into the market, obviously. But are basically in the process right now of just finding different partners that we can work with in the market to do all those other things that I was talking about in terms of like being able to grow, being able to like get our messaging out to Korean users, being able to provide really great customer service, product experience, things like that. So that's one of the big things we're going to be focusing on for the next few months.
Hopefully, COVID situation is better so that you guys can literally check out the Asian market yourselves. And
yeah, absolutely. Hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon. And as for dYdX, like long-term vision, like what's your ultimate vision for dYdX, and maybe some long-term milestones of the project that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, our long-term vision is pretty big. It's basically what I was just touching on before. Our goal is to become one of the biggest exchanges in crypto, period, but on kind of a 3 to 5 year time horizon. And in order to do that, we need to play in kind of like the biggest markets. So that's why we're focused on perpetuals and more broadly synthetics and derivative products as opposed to spot trading. Because it's pretty clear that if you want to be the biggest exchange, the biggest market is going to be in derivatives. So you have to play in the derivatives market. So that's like step one. Step two, and I think this is a bit of like a bigger gamble for us, or something that, it's not 100% clear, but we believe in, is that decentralized exchanges kind of on that timeline will be able to kind of beat and surpass trading volumes on centralized exchanges. So that's obviously what we've been working on alongside a lot of other great people in the DeFi space for a few years now. But like I said, I think a lot of people can see the writing on the wall. Like we're not 100% there yet, but decentralized exchanges were literally just invented 3 years ago. And already we have kind of this flourishing ecosystem of all these new great products. Like think about what we can achieve in 5 years from now from a product perspective with decentralized exchanges, with a lot of the great work that's being done, continuing to be done on scalability solutions for different blockchains, things like that. So we really believe that we'll just continue to see this trend of, first of all, derivatives trading volume, like continuing to grow even bigger than it already is. And then second of all, decentralized exchanges just continuing to grow from the like 5% or whatever they are of trading volume in crypto more broadly. And then if we can continue to be kind of the leader in decentralized exchanges for derivative products, therefore, like we will be like one of the biggest exchanges, like period, in crypto. So it's just kind of a combination of like pushing forwards, just like the entire DeFi space. And we think we've been, able to do that in terms of just our continued focus on the product, just like kind of trailblazing on layer 2 with Starkware, things like that. And then just maintaining at least what I think our position is right now in terms of like being the #1 decentralized exchange for derivative products, just continuing to iterate on the product and growth side and executing there.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope that you guys can spearhead more into the Asian market and like, I think because I'm in the Telegram group for dYdX Korea, and I was, the response from the Korean community was really great. And they're like, wow, because they weren't used to having like a direct interview, to seeing that direct interview, and I think they really want to have that interaction, to see that interaction, and like maybe become more familiar with the product, the new upcoming services that dYdX will offer, and so really excited to see like how you guys come into the Asian market, like maybe to kind of conclude this interview with a fun message. Could you share like a short message for the Asian or Korean community to just a happy ending, I guess, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I touched on a lot of this already, but we're really excited to be expanding into the Asian market, and Korea is quite literally like one of our biggest priorities in that market. So really excited to just be building alongside you all. If you want to check out the product, just head over to dYdX.exchange. We really welcome any of your feedback, and just look for us to continue to really hopefully improve the product experience for you and improve like especially like our targeting at Korea users and the experience there. So would love for you to check out the product, go out and like join the Telegram group, let us know your thoughts, and excited to just continue to build along you all and have you all in the community.
Thank you so much for your insight and for your explanation. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope to see you in real person in Asia in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, and looking forward to when we can hopefully meet up in person someday.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye, Antonio.
Bye.
Bye-bye.